Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. How's everyone doing? Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, Jacob. Good morning, Sterling. Thank you for putting in the info. Bestow Red Book bounces on holiday sales. There you go. U.S. online spending rose 7.7% during the 5-day Thanksgiving shopping event. What else do we have? What else do we have? We have Patrick and Rusty over on Rumble and some other people in the background there. So, what's this? SEC expects crypto exemption in a month. Oh boy. Okay. So, good morning, Anissa. How are you this fine morning? Well, it's later in the day for you, but we're still going to say happy morning. And Sterling summed it up for me. Good morning. That's the way I feel this morning. Had very little sleep last night. So, what else besides Red Book we have? We had the LMI Logistics Managers Index. No idea what that is. We have the RCMT IPP Economic Optimism Index for December. November were printed very low, by the way, but not much coming out today. Not much coming out today. The map, we actually got a red bar yesterday, completed some doubles, and then sold off in the afternoon, but it looks like it's buying everything. Not much red on the map. Apple down slightly. Micron, Micron a little pullback there. Boeing leading the charge higher. Uh, Oracle and Palantir, some of the things that have sort of been beat up recently, getting a bounce. So we might see a rotation into some of those. If you look at the groups, everything positive. Consumer defensive barely hanging on to positive territory at 2 basis points, but everything positive been led by technology and industrials. What else? Fed Watch, which is next week, which is in 8 days. Next Wednesday, not tomorrow, but the following Wednesday, 87% probabilities for another cut. Fear and greed. Oh, it's still in extreme fear mode. We're right near all-time highs, and it's still extreme fear. That typify the kind of things we're in? Breath continues to bounce back from its recent major self, which is a good sign for if you want a more stability in your rally. But again, it's still in the doldrums. Schiller PE 40.23. Buy it all. Earnings. Remember, there weren't much yesterday afternoon and today. Nothing really. After the close, we got Marvel, GitLab, CrowdStrike, American Eagles Outfitters, Box, but nothing that's really going to move the markets. And tomorrow morning, we have Dollar Tree and Macy's are the big ones tomorrow morning. See who else is here. Good morning, Charles. Oh, wonderful. SEC Chair Act, SEC to kick off policies in the new year to boost IPOs. Why do you need to change? Oh boy, it's going to get real interesting. Hi, Heinrich. How are you? Good morning, Jake. Is Trump Fed chair announcement likely this week? Really? I thought he made up his mind, but they're going to announce it this week. Good morning, Tony. As long as it's not Hassett. Oh, that would be a disaster. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, David Atkins. I still want the Fed gone. Can we just get rid of it? Please, let's get rid of the Fed. Please, 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 please. Good morning, Royal Palms. All right. Let's jump. Let's jump to the S&P. I'm keeping an eye on yesterday's high, especially if we get a one pausing bar breakout. That's a pretty strong signal. Keeping an eye on that. Before then, we came back down yesterday and bounced off pretty key support. We had that little double. Then we sold off. Then we were holding the 4-hour rotation zone at a triple top now. We did have a partial double top going into European Open. Nullified it. So now we're in triple top territory. The only thing that I'll be watching is if we do start closing below the 4-hour rotation zone, the 68.15 to 68.20 area. We start watching for that, then we're either going to go into a choppier day or pull back closer to the 8 EMA. Other than that, still watching for a breakout now above this little resistance shelf from yesterday, 68.55. Targets are still the same, 68.75 to the upside, and then 6,900. Who else is coming in? Well, I gave my worst case, Hassett. Best case, I'll have to think about that one. Best case, I have to think about that one. Good morning from Rick. Hey, Rick. I still like Holy Holy. Good day to you, Christoph. So I'm paying attention. If we get a one pausing bar with that 4 hour rotation zone holding, if we lose the 4 hour rotation bar, still not horrible yet because we got the first cross rotation zone. As I talked about yesterday on Futures Edge, we do have a massive potential, may never trigger, double top. If you didn't watch that, you should probably go watch the replay. But that's something longer term I'm keeping out. By the way, I'm going to be on again tomorrow afternoon if you're not already sick of me. So nothing else has changed. Same targets the upside. Just keeping on that 4 hour rotation zone. NASDAQ, nothing's changed here either. The NASDAQ holding that 4 hour rotation zone. The little double played out rather nicely. That little double, that's why you have targets on it. Now we've turned the mass. I was talking about the little double bottom. The potential double top is turned into a triple top and now breaking above it. So I was looking going into the live stream start, above this 25, 490, 25.5. We're above there. The targets, if they're for an intermediate target, it's 25,595 to 2,600 is the intermediate target. I'll just put that on the chart. And then the next major target is 25,775. An intraday target I'll keep an eye on is about 25, just above 25.7. And those aren't necessarily for today because that would require a strong rally. Same thing with keeping an eye on yesterday's high. We're already breaking out of the triple top base area or the triple top area, but I need follow through yesterday's high, which will give it a one pausing bar day buy signal too. Good morning, Ode Green. Yes, we have crossed the 62.5 on the daily. We closed above it actually last Friday. So again, that tips the probabilities. Doesn't mean you can't have pullbacks. Pullbacks are fully normal because it doesn't just go to targets, but it tips the probabilities. So on any bigger pullback, very key support near yesterday's low now. Very key support near yesterday's low. If we lost that, I'd be focusing on the 50. If we lose the 50, it doesn't flip probabilities the other way yet, but it's not good in the short term. So remember, what is it? About 73% that stocks end higher in December. And we've tipped the short term. That's the overall analysis on all Decembers. And just so happens at the end of November, we shifted the probabilities for a higher December. So at this point, I'm not fighting it yet. QT ended today officially. So no more quantitative tightening. The Dow has lost the 4 hour rotation zone. So the Dow I'm watching to break above this trend line. It's more of a channeling pullback. If I draw the channel on here, it's more of a channeling pullback right there. So I need to break out of this channel. The Dow's not my first choice yet for the bullish moves. Doesn't mean the Dow can't rotate back up because it's also tipped the probabilities with the closing above the 62.5 last Friday. But it's not acting the strongest. The Russell, again, pausing just above that 75% harmonic. Above here gets into a clear path move also. So it's a pretty easy shot if the Russell can get some traction to 25.33. In the short term, keeping an eye on the bottom of the 4-hour rotation zone. So if we start closing below 24.76, I'll go into choppy to potential choppy pullback mode. But the key level for support there is about 24.63. VIX, again, coming into a very key level of support. We do. I'll just keep an eye on this. If we form a potential double bottom, doesn't mean the VIX has got to pop. I'll just keep an eye on it if it were to pop. Other than that, again, I'll be looking possibly beginning of next week, unless something happens before then, that, to see. I'm not fully satisfied that this rally is going to sustain all of December, but in the short term, we definitely have the rally probabilities higher. DAX holding the 200. It was not able to close below it yesterday, still bouncing off it today. Is there any great trading in the DAX? No, not from my perspective. It's all scalpy. This thing either has to break below the 200 and close with a follow through close below the 200 or break above the 50. Other than that, it's caught in this range. Interesting enough, the yields on the 10-year yesterday climbing rather strongly, falling through a bit today. The more interesting one is the 30-year. Against here, let me go to daily first. 30-year. This was the top area in September, in the beginning of October, in the middle of November. Then we sold off with last week's rally. And now we're looking like we're trying to break out of it. So 30-year yields. So you got the overhead 200. I'm keeping a very close eye. And if you see here on the weekly, this isn't the best pattern because of the stair-step nature down, but it is still valid. So you have shoulder, head, shoulder. All right. I'd be watching for a weekly close above this 4.765 area. That could get interesting because look where the full target is. Back to 5% potentially. Gonna keep a very close, and that's where it topped out in beginning of September. It topped out with the candle bodies in July. Gonna keep a very close eye on this 30-year yield. What else did I see? HSBC analysis of OpenAI futures profitability. Spoiler, not what hoped for. I did not see HSBC's analysis of it specifically, but I've seen some other analysis in it. It's really not looking good. But you got people chasing it higher. You know what? We're going to have the next iteration of AI at some point where people are going to learn to do things smarter, not just throwing money at chips and data centers. They're going to look to scale it smarter to cut down on the costs and the depreciation cycle of these chips. So that's going to be the next interesting shift. And then we're going to see how things like NVIDIA react. What else do we have? We have crude still caught in the channel. Again, buy against support, sell against resistance. Unless this can break, it'd have to break the channel in above the 50 before I'd look for a shift in crude or really start taking out 57 to the downside. Other than that, it's just channeling. Gold coming back down. So we had the prior breakout level. We broke above last Friday. Retested. Okay, little pullback below the rotation zone, but into very key support. Right here, and now bouncing off of that. So keeping an eye on this. Again, the next key probability target is 43.36. 43.35.9 to be exact. Silver Coming up, still watching for it to tag out the $60 mark. Silver is would not, if you're not in it already, would not be chasing it higher at this point. In the short term, we do have a little mini potential double top. And by the way, I put things on the aggressive targets just because we don't know where the high is going to be. Let's say this was going to be the high. I would be flipping it to the conservative targets. Why? Because it's against the rotation zones and it's a very strong market. But I don't know if this is the high yet. That's why I always start out on the left-hand side. But if things are against the rotation zone, I go to the conservative targets for the most part. So I adjust them. So if you ever see targets like adjust between live streams, like let's say this was the high and we triggered it, I would be shifting the targets to this side. So if you ever see them change, that's why. Just wanted to clarify that for people. Copper, which we haven't looked in recently, again, still it bounced off of this key, just turned in. We had sort of a channel here, an weak upward sloping channel, and now it turned into just a key support level. So unless we close back below 4.94, still looking for bullish mode up against the 62.5. So I'm going to be watching again if it can close about 5.35 roughly. Dollar index yesterday spiking down, no close below the 50. No confirmation of the potential double top. And very key breakout level in the short term about this 99.20 area if it can get some traction. Euro, no confirmation of the double bottom yet. The breakdown area on the euro is roughly about 115.80. Yields on the yen, again, the Bank of Japan is going to be forced to hike. So yields hit the next harmonic area. Going to be keeping an eye on this still valid potential double top to see if we get a little pullback in some yields. The 10-year hit is reacting at the key cluster area, but there is no potential double top there. The pullback continued yesterday, but did not close below the daily rotation zone. So I'm paying attention to yesterday's high. What else? Bitcoin, not an official double bottom yet. I talked about this on Futures Edge, but not officially a double bottom yet. If we do break above that, even if it's not an official double bottom, I'm still looking at this roughly the same targets areas, about 97,500, and then a full target intermediate target right around 100, and then a full target possibly of about 102, 103. So they line up pretty close anyways for a bounce there. Pound dollar triggered a daily double bottom. It did do that. Let me see. I forget what I even have in this. I've not looked at the pound for a while. So you have a daily double bottom. Was that a weekly double bottom too? Against the rotation zone? Yeah. Huh. I've honestly not looked at the pound in a while. Yeah, there's your daily and also a weekly. Against the weekly rotation zone. Thank you for pointing that out, Christoph. I have not been focused on the pound. What is that interesting is that could play out is against the weekly rotation zone, so that first target is very, very key. But it's also triggered the very large double top pattern. Here's the official trigger bar. This bar was not a trigger. This bar was not a trigger. This was the official trigger bar. So we overall have this topping pattern, and we have a minor bouncing pattern. Very interesting. Anissa, on a 45-year quarterly analysis, I saw a cup and handle with a 370 US dollar target for silver. That, okay. Wow. A quarterly. Can I get to, I'd have to do a custom one, but let's see. A cut. You mean this? Well, we don't have the handle side yet. That would be very interesting. I wouldn't give a target of 370 though. If this were to pull back on the larger thing, but I'm again, we shall see. Silver's getting a little to the mania phase, but it's still strong and still tradable to the upside. What else do we have here? The spiders. Again, the key area I'm watching is roughly the 683.35 area for a break above that. We do have the gap up from yesterday, so on any weakness, would watch for the gap fill to 680.27. Other than that, still magnet price 684.84. Interesting, where that's where roughly it's the 87.5 harmonic. That's why it's a magnet price, but that's where we also have the reversal bar for the 12th of November. It's the gap open reversal. So that's very interesting right there. We did fill the gap also prior. Again, that's about it for that. The Qs gap up today, so on any weakness would be for the gap fill 617.17, but I'm more specifically, it's right above the key breakout level. These two tops, right above the key breakout level right now. So on the first, on any pullback, I'd be looking at the high area for about 619.30, 619.35 for support. There is still a gap left behind to 621.08, which is the first magnet price, and the second one was 622.94. Could we see Airbus EPA? You mean the stock Airbus? What else? I meant the 100. Where did 100 SMA not to 200? For which? Oh, SMH looks good for adding to move off of the 100. Well, look at first SMH. The key thing on the SMH is that it closed above the 62.5. So where is it on the weekly? Again, into the weekly rotation zone. Going to be interesting to see if this forms a massive potential double top pattern. But you got to watch for these bigger pullbacks. You got to watch the weekly rotation zones. Yeah, it's still definitely in bullish mode. Now, you wanted to stop Airbus. Airbus, not one I normally look at. But since they've had that issue with the grounding of all those planes, coming back down is why we always start with the bigger time frame analysis. So key still closing above the last week, above the, or this week, sorry. So far closing above a very key support level after tapping off the 37.5 harmonic. Going to be interesting to see where this week closes in relation to the weekly rotation zone. Now we have the overhead resistance. So where would that put it? I just want to see a couple things here. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Breakdown level, 50% harmonic on any bounce. That is that. And then on a weekly, look at that. So, gonna be interesting to see if it can sustain a bounce. 200 would be a potential area for another rollover play. You got the rotation zone there. Just above that, you got the hooking down 50. If it could even sustain a bounce there. But that's the very key level. If we do not get any bounce and it drops back below 186, I'd be looking for a reconnect with this other key area. Look at this. Prior, over here on the left, prior resistance, broke down below it, retested a few times, but then turning it into support. And look where the 200 is. So if it cannot sustain the low from Monday, the 178 area is the next key area to watch. There you go, Anissa. Hope that, but right now, any pattern would just be it would be an aggressive dead cat bounce from my perspective, because you'd be going straight in a massive resistance and a more bearish pattern. Only thing for me, and I'm not involved in the stock in any way, the only thing I'd be watching would be for the week to close back above for any bullish case to close back above the weekly rotation zone, and then it would have to sustain above 200 before I'd be interested in touching it from the long side at all. So let's peek at the open. Let's see. Let's see where we sit. Again, S&P not able in this horizontal channeling pattern, not able to get above 68.55 is still the key level there that I'll be watching. Again, paying attention to the bottom of the 4-hour rotation zone. Just to recap, the NASDAQ tried to break above it since we've been talking, coming back down a little. So right at this key area, going to be watching it still to see if we can sustain something there. Ford is closed above the weekly 200 and the 62.5 retracement from the July high. There you go. From the back from that to that. You're looking at the big picture. You're looking at this one. July of 24, which had closed back above a while ago. In the most recent pullback, let's see. It closed back above it, but that was not the 62.5 at that point. When it was this point, it tapped right on between the rollover zone and rolled over. And still, at 62.5 on the new 62.5 is holding as key resistance. So, bigger perspective, holding the 200, holding the prior breakout level on a closing basis with the rising rotation zone. So again, from my analysis, it could still look for buy setups unless we get back below about 1225 area. In the short term, it has to get a close above 1337 to shift the short-term probabilities. That's what we have for you. Hope everyone has a wonderful trading day. And I will see you all tomorrow. I have to take my wife to the airport later this morning, flying back to Chicago. But I will still be here. So I will see you all tomorrow morning. Bye for now.